Welcome to She Loves the Grid, where we discuss all things F1. And here we are. Welcome to She Loves the Grid. Hello, Diane. I'm Claire. How are we?
I'm good.
I always figure out how I'm supposed to say the intros because we have the intro recording,
Yeah.
that does, but I always feel weird how I started up. But anyway.
No, I like
Hello.
it. We're back.
Hello. We're back. Our first off week in between two races, so
Yes.
get back into the groove of things.
Ooh, it is our first off week between races. I've got plans this weekend, but still at the same time, it's like, darn it, it's Saturday and we don't have anything to look forward to.
Another thing, we're recording on a Saturday, which we normally don't do. I kind of like it though. I kind of like the recording on the Saturday, which we can't do on most race weeks, but it kind of gives that Sunday a free up, and all that. But yeah, so how was your week?
Oh, so busy. Work was just busy. I feel like I was just telling you, it's gonna be busy even through June. Then I'll be ready for our trip, even if it's just a few days. And yeah, so busy. I think I got to the gym one time, barely got out of the house. So today is a catch-up day. I gotta catch up on my Italian lessons. I gotta go to the store. Yeah, try to go to the gym. We'll see. I might just eat jelly beans instead. I don't know.
You need sleep. You just don't do too much. You need time for you.
Yes, me time. I did book a facial for the end of the month, but that's not till the end of the month. But I'm sure I'll need it then as well. What about you? Tell me about your week.
Well, my week was interesting. So I have
the tea.
Yes, I have the tea. So I have put in my notice for my full-time employee and venturing back into the entrepreneurship to work with my my partner and my son and all things geeky, which we had going on anyway. I just wasn't focused on it full time. I'm really excited by it because my son is really becoming a really good programmer, and I can mentor him and I can spend a little more time doing our social media stuff for my dog, which is, yes, my dog, because she's about to launch her own line of fun, catchy clothing and stuff, and and all of that. So I'm just excited to be able to do that stuff and use my creative, nerdy brain for things.
I'm so excited for you. I know I've said this in the past and even this morning, but you can just hear the excitement in your voice. That's been missing for a minute. So I'm super excited for you.
It's going to be so much fun. So it's going to be fun. So hopefully that means it's going to take another week or so of adjustment. But, for those who watch us and follow us, hopefully you're going to see more. It might be a little bit different flavor in what's said because it'll be my words instead of Diane's. In most of the posts, so Diane will be posting too, but I need to take a lot of that burden off because she's being overwhelmed and carrying us along all this time. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, it's all good. We both, I think, always have the same thoughts. So it's going to be great. And at least something will be posted instead of this week. I got 0 things posted. So
it's going to be good. Well, it's kind of a slow week. I think, I spent most of the week from an F1 perspective just trying to dig in to see if we would get any more out of the whole Red Bull stuff. So that was, and I know I kind of jumped out on the stuff you have listed. That's been more the stuff I was trying to dig. I'm pretty good about finding things, and I just can't get much more. It's got to be the best PR protection I've ever seen. The only thing that's better is what's going on with Kate Middleton. I cannot this. I am blown away how well they're keeping so much under wraps. It just blows my mind.
It's incredible, and I'm sure people are probably threatened, big time. I'm sure there's some either veiled threats or just outright threats about not speaking about it, not sharing any information about it. I mean, I know with my company, there is a social media thing. If people know that you work for the company and you speak on maybe an issue or whatever, it can look like you're speaking on behalf of the company. So I'm sure a company like Red Bull with their drinks and the sports and everything else, I'm sure they have something similar. But yeah, I also think people are just afraid of Christian, to be honest. It just floors me that if you believe the alleged things that have come out, and I think there's a lot of truth to them, that they were ready to fire him and he just said no and had his lawyers come out. And I think that's kind of where we're at, is he's, and we've talked about it the last 2 weeks at the races. He's just, I'm in charge. He's made comments. He's made multiple comments about, alluding to Max. And, I've heard everything from I lead this team to no one person is, we can let people go, basically. So
it blows my mind. I can't get the audacity and the, I don't know, the machismo behind like that of, if that's really true, to hear that rumbling's about to be fired, to be like, no, I own this place. This is just blows my mind. Just absolutely blows my mind.
I don't get it either, but I feel like this isn't the only space in this world that is happening nowadays. People, men, mainly white men, powerful men, I think are trying to fight back by just saying no, and nobody wants to hold them accountable. And I think it's just such a slap to all of the women that follow this sport. Again, this week, I've seen a lot of people saying, do I want to follow this sport? Like, this is a huge issue. There's no transparency around it, which leads to even more speculation. And now you've got all these women that are spending a lot of money on this sport. And it also makes some of the comments that he said in the past, which is, women are getting involved in the sport because of the drivers. Okay. Yeah. That's something that Christian has said in the past. Like, those things are coming back out, and it's just not a good look. We spend money. Think about the merch that's being bought, the tickets, the, people the content creators, like, there's a lot of women in the sport who are passionate about it, and it's a huge slap in the face.
And let's talk about the merch. I'm not a girly girl. We've got everywhere, my pronouns, blah, blah, blah. But let's talk about the merch. It's not even girly merch. It's not even merch aimed at women, but women buy the merch. I mean, we've seen it. To get one shirt that comes when it first comes out, not on sale, the latest and greatest, the cheapest T-shirt you can get is easily $50 to $75 US. Yeah. This is not cheap merch. This is, which just blows my mind because it's sponsored, but it's not cheap merch. And it blows my mind that they can be so flippant, because you're going to have women who are going to want to buy the stuff because they want to dress in the attire and wear the colors and dress the part. And it's not tailored to them. It's not women, and the few women shirts that there are lame. So we end up buying the men's anyway. Yeah. And it'll be interesting how it continues to play. Did I read that the female employee is now is appealing it or trying to get attorneys to kind of go back at this, right?
Yes. So as a reminder, this was a private investigation, and Christian was cleared of wrongdoing or whatever. But it's a private investigation with people hired by Red Bull. So I don't think it's naturally impartial, in my opinion. You can say all the right things. We're hiring this person. We're taking care of this right away, which they did. But that doesn't mean you didn't tell that person to find a specific finding, right? Like, we're going to clear him of all things. So the female employee has been suspended, allegedly with pay, for being dishonest. But she is retaining a new lawyer, and she's going to appeal the private investigation. I almost feel like at this point she just needs to file charges. I think at the very least, people can argue, if you've read the alleged messages, which nobody has come out, as far as I know, to say that those are false, at least from Christian's camp. They instead threatened to sue publications if they published them, which kind of makes me feel like they're legit. I think, people can say like, oh, well, it seemed consensual and she was responding and but there's that hierarchy. And I think where you get down and dirty is the text messages talking about deleting it. Have you deleted it? He knew obviously what he was saying was not correct. But when you get into the part of like, well, why are you here if you're not going to do X, Y, Z? Like, if you are not going to come with me on this trip, or you're not going to stay in the same hotel, you're not going to let me do these things that I'm saying, then why are you working here? That's threatening somebody's job. That is harassment in the workplace.
Well, if you look at where we're at now, there's the argue of like, well, she's suspended with pay. Okay, well, let's digest that a little, or dissect that a little bit. She's suspended with pay, so she's tarnished within Red Bull because she's suspended, and it keeps her from being able to progress her career, or there's some tarnish right there anyway.
Yes.
It's not a big community, so it's going to be known at some point who she is, what's going on. That's going to negatively impact her career. So it is an impact her career. And if she's suspended because she lied and she's in the wrong, then why is she suspended with pay?
Right.
The two don't match up to me. Like I don't understand that at all. Yeah,
that's very true. And I just keep thinking, like, what is the atmosphere like at Red Bull? Because there were people that she worked with that she was friends with or friendly with, and they, I'm sure probably liked her. Maybe some of them had suspicions about, things, or maybe things she told people. So how do those people feel about continuing to work with Christian? I would be disgusted seeing him, every day if I was a friend of hers or knew something was up. You just know, like, it's got to be tense. Like, the atmosphere there has just got to be tense. And I think that Christian, at least at the track, is trying to do the business as usual and look at me with my wife. But the people inside Red Bull, it can't be business as usual. It can't be. There's two different camps from everything that's being said. It just cannot be business as usual there. It's
got to be weird. And he's being a bit smug. All right, well.
And then
the elephant out of the room on that one, but yeah.
But then you think too, like, if Max, all the rumors with Max, and we know Joss is not happy, and whether or not, Joss has a relationship with this woman or not, we know Joss is not happy. He thinks that it is a distraction. He thinks that all this stuff with Christian is taking away from the team and the drivers and the car. So if it's true that Max might want to go, that he doesn't want to stay if Christian stays, can you imagine what silly season is going to look like? Because we already knew silly season was going to be crazy, right? It's already started. It's insane. But you throw Max in the mix, and how does that shake everything up? Like, do the other teams like hold off on signing somebody else to see what happens with this Red Bull situation? And is Max available? Because everybody wants Max. I mean, he's not going to go to a Haas or whatever, or a stake team, but like, everybody wants Max. So do you hold off on signing somebody else, another driver? So that leaves all these drivers in limbo, because it's the majority of the grid whose contracts are up. Like, would somebody else be jumping for a spot at Red Bull, or do drivers want to fuss with that? Like, what's going on there? It makes all of silly season even sillier.
And that's a good point, because I saw a prediction. I forget the person who did it. It's an F1 analyst, and they were moving some people around, but they still had Max firmly at Red Bull. But they had like Alonso at Mercedes, and they had Danny up at Red Bull as well. And it just, what would that happen? Where would he go? And then where would everyone else go? That
Mercedes would take him. Toto has already said Mercedes would take Max in a heartbeat. Ferrari, they don't have anything. Aston Martin would take him. Are you kidding? Papa Stroll would be all over that. He would. Yep. You take Max, and I also feel like Max is the driver that, he has said, like, I've got 3 or 4 world champions. I don't have to have 7. I think that he is. We know that he's tired of all of the gimmicky stuff with F1. He strikes me as a driver that just wants to race. What if he just stepped away? He could always come back later, but I could see him stepping away. He's creating his own other teams, and he's got all the money in the world. That would be a boss-ass move if you ask me. Like, yeah, I'm going to step away for a year. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this. If he doesn't like what he's seeing with the other teams, I could totally see. I don't know why. I just feel like he'd be one of those dudes that would, like Kimmy, I'm going to go. I'll come back in a year or 2.
I guess that's a really good point. I could also see him too I don't think he would go to a super lower team, but I could see him take to a Mercedes or and asked a partner to see, like, let me see how far I can push this car.
Yeah.
Where there's been all these kind of, I don't want to say excuses, but call outs by the drivers in those cars to say the car is just not good enough, to go, well, let me see what I can do with my skill with this car.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just see that would be kind of interesting too, because we've talked about it before. What would you do if you put this current drivers in the others' cars? That I could see him taking that challenge as well.
Totally.
Not as low as a Haas or a Williams, but maybe a and the McLaren, but you can't. That one's full, but that would be kind of interesting as well. But I like your idea. That I could see that too, and go take some time off, let the dust settle, and everyone go nuts, and then come back, or even really sponsor, mentor some of the younger drivers that come up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because if Christian's not going to go because the majority owner loves him or whatever, like, why not? Why not? You could totally do it and come back in 2026 when the cars are, the new iteration of cars are out. So there's that drama that's still taking place. And then also, like, I feel like the hits just keep coming for F1 and the FIA, but Felipe Massa's lawsuit, he actually filed a lawsuit. And I'm going to stop my camera for 1 second because my dog is like barking his ever-loving head off. And we've had a lot of coyotes around here lately, and I don't want him.
Oh yeah,
calling a coyote. I haven't heard them. Oh my gosh, he's like jumping up and down like a little crazy mutt. What is your problem?
But yeah, that lawsuit, we knew it was going to be coming, right? We knew that was going to come back out. It's interesting coming up now between what's going on with the FIA president and this that's going on now. Bam. When it rains, it pours, right?
When it rains, it pours. And right now, I kind of thought like this is a great time for Felipe to file this lawsuit because there is so much going on. And I feel like, yeah, let's just pile it on. Why not? Let's see what happens. But okay, so let's go back just a little bit. This is a whole thing, people. If you do not know about Crashgate 2008, I would highly recommend looking it up. We actually talked about it twice last year when Felipe was kind of exploring things and came out, started talking about it, but I'm going to give you my notes. All right. So his whole lawsuit hinges on the fact that in 2008, FIA F1 did not annul the results of the Singapore Grand Prix. In the Singapore Grand Prix, Nelson Piquet Jr. So the name might sound familiar to you because Piquet is the father of Max's girlfriend. Okay. So the son was racing for McLaren at that time. Renault. His teammate was Fernando. He alleges, and not until a year after the Singapore Grand Prix, that his bosses at Renault told him that he needed to crash his car so that Fernando could win the race or he could get points. And that was huge because I think Massa was leading the race. Felipe was leading the race, and then he had a really bad pit stop, and things happened where he lost out big time. Like he dropped big in the order. He ended up finishing 13th, and because of that race, he ended up losing the World Driver Championship that year to Lewis Hamilton by 1 point. 1 point. That was Lewis's first of his 7 driver championships. Craziness. There's actually that's it in a very, very, very small nutshell, because there is so much other stuff that goes on behind that, like what was said, who said what. So a year later, Renault was not happy with Nelson Piquet Jr., his performance, anything else. And so he came out and said, this is what happened. They told me to do this. And, it's because he was fired. So then people are like, oh, it's just sour grapes. So last year, Bernie Ecclestone, who is a former F1 president, he's 93 now. So last year he would have been 92, went on a podcast and said that he And the FIA, I think it was the FIA president, actually knew about Renault telling Nelson to crash the car and create this whole scenario. But they failed to investigate it. And they knew it at the time, and they didn't investigate until like a year later when Nelson Piquet came out. But the F1 and I think it's F1 or FIA rules state once you hand out the trophy at the end of the season, they have a little dinner, all of that good stuff. This year it was in December. Once that's done, everything is signed, sealed, delivered. You can't go back. So they couldn't go back and do it, even though he admitted that they knew at the time. However, remember shortly after, he said, I don't remember saying that. Maybe it wasn't a podcast. Maybe it was an interview. But either way, he said, I don't remember saying that. Cut to this week, and Massa has filed a lawsuit against the FIA, Formula One, and Bernie Ecclestone, seeking up to 150 euros in damages. And he wants the FIA to admit that it violated its own rules for not investigating the crash. So the up to 150 euros, that kind of includes like what he feels he would have received as a World Driver Championship and any money, like potential money that would have come from winning.
100 million euros? 150
million euros. Did I say euros? Yeah.
You said 150 euros, like a couple $100. I'm like,
million. Sorry, like I get too excited about this. What I think is really interesting, because I definitely think that he has a leg to stand on. And apparently, over this past year, Felipe's lawyers have been pulling people together, and they're getting statements. They're making sure that people that were around in 2008, the information, like even this interview that Bernie did last year, is all pulled together to say like, yes, we knew about it. What I think is interesting is this week, Bernie came out and said, which, I mean, mind you, he's named in the lawsuit. He said, and this is a quote, if he, meaning Felipe, had asked me, I would have said it was the complete right thing to do, to sue and to let an English judge decide what is right and what is wrong. Last year on a podcast, he also said that Massa did everything right in 2008, and he was cheated out of the title that he deserved, and Lewis had some luck in winning his first championship. So you're named in a lawsuit. You probably shouldn't say anything, because otherwise you are digging your own grave at this point, and all of this can and will be used against you in a court of law. Like, so the hits just keep on coming. So not only do they have Red Bull to worry about, which I guess FIA and F1, it's just, they're not necessarily directly involved at this moment. You've got the FIA president being investigated because of a whistleblower saying that he's interfered in races. And now you've got Felipe actually filing his lawsuit against F1 and the FIA.
Well, and with all of that, I wonder, and as chummy as Christian and Mohammed S, I can't say his last name either without looking at it, or who knows if FIA, at least by, way of certain actors, is not involved in the Red Bull drama either. Yeah. So
they are, to the sense that we know that Mohammed did approach Max at the first race behind the scenes and told him that he needed to publicly support Christian. And Max's response, and this is why I totally think Max is somebody that could just walk away from the sport after he finishes this year. He's probably going to have his fourth World Drivers' Championship in a row. Max told the FIA president, why don't you do your own investigation?
Yeah.
So
anyway, but back to like that. It's crazy how intertwined that is. And
it's crazy. I mean, so definitely scandal is nothing new to F1 and FIA. This goes back to 2008. I don't think that they would give him the World Drivers' Championship. I don't think you can take that away from Lewis. Lewis didn't have anything to do with this. And other than he was in second place at the time and ended up, winning. But so I think he could easily get that money, Felipe. So
absolutely.
So the
Absolutely.
drama just continues. I don't know what's going to happen next week. It could be anything.
It's going to be an interesting year, and what a ride we'll be on, right?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All right, let's talk about some other stuff beyond the grid. Yes, beyond the grid. Okay, if you're looking for ways to spend lots of money, like we said, the merch is not cheap in this sport. It's not easy being a fan of a very expensive sport. So Alex Albon has announced that he has some new merch coming out. He's kind of teasing things with like a green and white. I think it's green and white or green and ivory t-shirt. So Alex has some things coming out. You can see if you're on our YouTube channel. Those were the shoes that he released last year. A lot of the drivers were wearing them. They're very cool. He has his new logo, which is up at the top. It's like the intertwined A's and the 23. So he's got some new merch coming out. And then so does Oscar. And I'm kind of loving Oscar's merch for real. Like, this, so again, if you're on our YouTube, you'll see it's a sweatshirt, which right now we're heading into winter down in Australia. It's fall and winter, so perfect timing for us. Maybe not as perfect in the Southwest, where it's going to start getting into the hundreds. But it's a cool looking sweatshirt. Like, it's got such, I don't know, kind of like a vintage vibe to it, using his 81. So OP and then 81 are usually the things that he puts on his merch. So yeah, if you're looking for some new merch drops, there you go. Pretty
He's
neat.
wearing this, and the next thing I have that shows his new helmet, which is really cool.
I love that the drivers do this because the teams make a lot of money, obviously, on their shirts. And as we said, nobody's really designing anything for the women, even though we're the ones probably spending the majority of money on merch. So I love that the drivers are kind of doing their own thing and, having another revenue stream.
Absolutely.
I love that. I love both Alex and Oscar. I could totally see getting that.
And Alex's website is cream, by the way, because for me to set that up on the slides, I had to make the whole background cream, and that's the website. It's got that creamy kind of color to it.
Oh, yeah. So I bet it is green and cream. I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of the green. I'm like, why the green? I don't get it.
I love the green,
I know you will. But to me, it screams like Aston Martin, like sort of the state.
It's his color, he's not doing it from the team as much as just his favorite color. Maybe the color he loves.
That could be it. Okay, so drivers are also in their model era. We have had so much stuff drop lately. And again, go to our YouTube page because you will be able to see some of the stuff that we're seeing. Charles and Carlos a couple weeks ago getting their modeling on. I'm not sure. That red leather outfit, or maybe it's pleather outfit that Charles is wearing, is very much like Eddie Murray Raw. I think it was his Raw.
It was
stand up back in the 80s. That's what that reminds me of. I love it.
I saw live.
Yeah. Carlos looks like a doctor, which I'm not mad about that at all.
And those are from Esquire Italia, by the way.
Esquire Italia. Well, then you've got Oscar, Esquire Digital
Also.
Australia. Those looked really good. They did that at their headquarters, I think, at McLaren headquarters in England. Really, really good. And then Joe is him and Lewis. They are my fashion guys, and he did a whole spread for WSJ in China. I mean, amazing photos. And you know me, I love Dior. I am a Dior girl all day, and so I've always loved that Joe represents them. But oh my gosh, all of his pictures, he could easily be a model, 100 million%.
Yeah, I had a hard time picking the picture. There was 4 great ones that they had that they showed that he had on Twitter, and I had a hard time picking one. But I really like that one, especially with the Fast and Furious on there. Same with Oscar. There was several pictures, and that I had a hard time picking. The collage was just there, so that's why I used the collage for Oscar or for Charles and Carlos. But they were all just amazing.
I love it. It's also like I also love fashion. So, and I think obviously Joe does. I think a lot of the drivers get into it in some way, shape, or form, but it also brings more eyes to the sport, right? Like, okay, maybe you're into fashion, but what is this driver? What do they do? Then you get into the sport because once you're in the sport, you're kind of hooked. So I think that's amazing. Love that. Nice job in their model era. Way to go, drivers. Way to go. Looks good. All right, let's talk about a little bit about the teams, like stuff that's come out this week. As we get ready for Australia coming up. So Williams, you know me, and I love James Vowles, and I will listen to anything that he puts out. But he was talking a lot about what happened at the last race in Saudi Arabia and the crash or the bump or whatever you want to say between Magnussen and Alex Albon. But he did finish up by saying that he thinks the car is going to be good in Melbourne. So that's exciting. I hope it is. Last year in Melbourne, they were very fast. I think that was one of the first races where I was like, Williams, yay. So knowing that they made some changes on the car, I'm really hoping that that shines and it is a very positive track. And let's just pray that there's no bad luck, that nobody is running into the Williams cars or they're not breaking down on their own or whatever.
And we don't end up with like last year, because Australia, the one that had the most did not finish. Like, oh my gosh, let's just hope that's not the case too.
I feel we'll talk about that when we get there, but I feel like it may not. And I think there's changes that they made. Ferrari is planning to bring a major upgrade to Imola. So new floor, aggressive bodywork, shockingly redesigning the side pod inlets that resemble the RB19, which I think is kind of hysterical because we all know that the RB20 has completely different inlets this year. So yeah, I guess we're going to go to the RB19 inlets. But if it works, it works. Like, please don't go backwards. Yeah. However, the other thing that was coming out is that with all the stuff that's happening at Red Bull, Ferrari is basically giving Adrian Newey a blank check. They want him so badly to come over to Ferrari that they are willing to do whatever he wants. Whatever you want, we'll do it. We want you. They're also trying to grab some of the main engineers. There's 3 of them from Red Bull. So I feel like Ferrari was like, let's give Lewis $1 bazillion to come sign a multi-year contract. We've locked in Charles, and let's just throw all the money out there. Let's get the top Adrian Newey, the wizard. Let's get him. Let's get the people underneath him at Red Bull, and let's get ready for 2026. Crazy. If that happens too, that's the other part where I'm like, maybe these people are also, stepping out. They don't want to work under Christian anymore. So go to Ferrari. Okay. You can make Ferrari great again. Yes.
That'd be amazing.
That would be amazing.
It's not like Ferrari doesn't have the money, so they get that extra money. So they've got the money to afford it.
Yep. Do it. Take them all. Take them all.
I would love it.
I'll definitely be a Ferrari fan, but also wherever Carlos goes, I'm that too. So, but I like all the drivers. I love me some Alex. Like I said, I love Alex Albon. Okay, Chatty Cathy. It's a new week, so of course we have a comment from Chatty Cathy, but this time it's about the VCARB team, which I feel like he doesn't talk a whole lot publicly about that, except last year when he was trashing Nick DeVries. But this year, he did come out and say, and this is a quote, there's a lot at stake this season for both Yuki and Daniel. Yuki's qualifying performance was very good. He was speaking about Saudi Arabia. But Ricardo has to come up with something soon. Ooh. Can you imagine? If I'm Daniel and I know what happened to Nick last year, I'm thinking maybe I need to start figuring out how to beat my teammate outside of team orders. Yes.
It's interesting because that analyst who was predicting next year's seats put Ricardo with Red Bull, Yuki still with VCARB, and then had who did they have? They had Liam Lawson with VCARB.
Yes.
And then and I'm like, why not Joe? Why not Yuki up at Red Bull if Yuki's already showing better than Danny? I just don't get it, other than the PR aspect of how Danny's so much big in the PR stuff. I don't know. So
yeah, I think at this point, and granted, everybody, we're only 2 races in and we've got 22 races to go. But at this point, if I'm Red Bull, why am I looking outside of Sergio? Sergio is showing his own. Last year, we know what happened. He was doing great at the beginning of the season. It went downhill. But he did a lot of work on himself over the past year. There's a great episode of Beyond the Grid with Sergio. If you haven't listened to it, it's worth a listen. This week is Alex Albon, which I haven't listened to, but I'm thinking, why would I look outside of Sergio? I know Sergio would be a good teammate to Max. He's proven that in the past, and he can keep the car in first or second. Great. There we go. Why would I even think about moving a Yuki or Daniel up into that seat? I wouldn't. But Daniel does need, I mean, everybody is saying, like, what is wrong with Daniel? What is happening there? He's not starting off amazing. So we'll see. Again, we got a long way to go. So much can happen in this season. McLaren, are they having DRS issues? Supposedly in Jeddah, granted the Jeddah first race, second race. Anyways, they lost 0.4 per lap in qualifying due to their DRS. And then we saw what happened with Oscar, how he couldn't get past the Mercedes for the longest time. Like, he's just 20 laps, I think it was, and he even made a joke about it afterwards. Like, I'm an expert of the rear wing of the Mercedes, but it does kind of make you wonder, are they having some DRS issues? Hopefully that would be somewhat of an easy thing to fix this season, but something.
Yeah, I feel like they took like a step back from the end of last year, and
a little bit. They had so much momentum last year. Once they got it dialed in, it was just all up from there. And like we said last week, they're not doing bad at all. And I think those are the teams that are just kind of like them and Aston Martin that are just very consistent. These first 2 races, they make some tweaks and they're gone. Like they will be gone.
Yeah, especially that Aston Martin, because Fernando was on it last week, so that it'll be interesting if they don't pull another Canada like they did last year and just take a million steps back. But we'll have to start saying that about all teams. Don't pull a Canada.
Yeah, don't pull a Canada.
And go backwards. But yeah, that's another one that I just tweak it and just the next level.
Yep, absolutely. I am still excited to watch them. Mercedes was the other team. They believe they've got a very fundamental problem in the high-speed corners, which we did see that. I think they were second to worst in the last race on the high-speed corners. They were like 9th on high-speed corners. So they do know that they've got something that they need to work on there. So we will see. We will see what happens. But let's talk about next week because we're headed down under.
Before we do, we have one other little cute picture. It was like that was the debut 9 years ago with Carlos and Max. We want to make sure we show that.
So 2015, yesterday, Friday, 2015, these 2 drivers joined the grid. Look at their little baby faces. Max looked like Max was young. But look at the little baby faces, and Carlos still got the hair going on.
Yeah, I noticed that thing.
Isn't that crazy? And look at where they're at now. I mean, goodness gracious, Max, 3-time world champion, which I think they all knew. He did skip F2. By the way, if you don't know, now you know. And then Carlos, the only driver, non-Red Bull driver last year to win a race. I mean, incredible. Can you believe that? 2015. That's how long they've been around. And they're still young. They're still young.
They're still so young.
They're
okay, now we can do Melbourne. We have a lid, and then I've got the race. You want to talk about Oscar's lid real quick?
Oh, yes. Let's do it. So Oscar's already announced his special lid for Australia. If you don't know, this is a home race for Oscar and for Danny, and technically Valtteri.
Adopted for Valtteri. I saw a post like that. They had the 3 of them up, and someone goes, Valtteri's from Australia. I'm like, well.
Not really.
He's adopted Australia.
It's
He's
his,
adopted.
yes, it's his adopted country. And last year he did some really great things. So I'm assuming we're going to maybe see some more special helmets. But I loved Oscar's that blue with the orange and the trees and the kangaroo. I just think it's amazing. Like, well done. And it matches his merch that's dropping
Yep.
because that is special for the race, for the Australian GP. But how great is that? Gosh, I'm excited for special helmets already. I love
thought it
that
was
he
really
dropped it
cool.
early too,
Yeah,
because
I
it's
loved it.
going to be busy. If it's like last year, everybody had special something. I mean, Valtteri was doing special coffee rides and like selling coffee and dinners
Val-
with crazy.
Valtteri is just a special case in itself. So
Valtteri. Oh my gosh, his mullet's going to be in full form. He is totally Australia. That's why he's an honorary. So I think that's going to be fun. And last year, I think it was Oscar's grandma made cookies for like the team. So
yeah, everybody was so into Oscar's grandma last year because she kept making stuff for them. I'm
oh
looking
my
forward
gosh.
to it.
Well, I think his house isn't too far from the track, or well, it's not really a track, like it's a park, but so I think I think that's so exciting. We're technically back to a Sunday race, but for me, the race happened Saturday night at 9 p.m. So
yeah, and I was looking at my times. I was just looking at that. I was looking down at my phone. Mine is 5 in the morning on Sunday.
ooh, yowza.
I might be up the night before. Yeah, like Friday morning for
Just
me.
get up and watch it later.
2:30 in the morning is FP1. 6 in the morning is FP2. Saturday 2:30 and 6 are FP3 in qualifying. So
oh my gosh, mine at least are at 9 and 10, or 6:30. I think is FP1, and then 10 o'clock is quali. So. Ay. Well, I think that this race is a little bit earlier in the season than we're used to, because right, they were trying to make so the teams don't have to go back and forth, to near and far. But like you said, last year it was an absolute like S show. It was a shit show. I'm just gonna say it was an absolute shit show. First, it was kind of boring. And then at the end, I was starting to fall asleep, and all of a sudden it's like red flag. I think it was Albon that first crashed. But he was kind of on his own. And then we ended up with 3 red flags, multiple restarts, standing restarts. Lots of cars did not finish because everybody is crashing into each other on these restarts. And Carlos got that really sad penalty.
8 did not finish.
8 did not finish. Craziness. Yeah. But they also last year had made some big changes to the track. So I don't know if that was part of it. This year, we're still 58 laps, but there's 2 DRS zones. Last year, I had noted there were 4. So I think that may be part of it is that is one of the changes is we have half as many DRS zones as we did last year. So that's, I think, going to be a big deal.
Yeah, corner 1's still going to be crazy. That's what that's just. I just noticed what I think is interesting is that track was first used in 1996.
Yeah. Oh, when our boys were born.
That's just so crazy.
Yes.
But yeah,
again, go to our YouTube because you can see the circuit, what we're looking at. But yes, turn 1 is insane.
I'm looking at it and it's just glaring at me, like right at a speed trap, and just that. Oh gosh, I'm having nightmares, just like flashbacks, thinking about corner 1 last year. Just all the carnage that happened at corner 1.
So much teammates taking each other out, Ocon and Pierre, like, oh my gosh, it was just insane. Some people got points that should have never gotten points just because there were very few cars left in the race. This is one of the faster tracks on the calendar. There's a lot of wheel-to-wheel action. It can be bumpy because it is like a temporary track, if you will. People can go on and ride, their bikes or what have you on it. I think that it's so interesting. One of the best things about the Australian Grand Prix, and it is one of the races I would love to go to, is it's a major party, right? Like it is one of the favorite races for fans. It's one of the favorite races for drivers. They love it there. absolutely love it there. This year, the fans will not get to do the track invasion. If you recall last year, part of the issues that came out of that race, besides everything that happened with the drivers on track, that the fans were jumping fences, going underneath fences, whatever, and going onto the track before all of the cars had cleared. So they had finished the race, but the cars still have to, you finish the race here at, you still have to go around turn 1, 3, 4, 5. You got to go all the way back around to get to the pits. And people were on the tracks racing to get to the podium. There was also, if I remember correctly, talk about people looting some of the F2 garages. And so teams had to stay behind instead of going to the podium to make sure that their stuff wasn't being taken. People were walking out with wings and different parts of cars. It was mayhem. So the track was mayhem. And then afterwards it was mayhem. So they will not actually get a chance to do that this year. But I still think we're going to have a whole week. Who did I see? Was it McLaren? No, Pierre was already on his way to Australia with his girlfriend yesterday. He posted picture on the plane. So the drivers, they will get there early. They're golfing. They're in the water. They're, doing helicopter tours. They love this. So I think this week we're going to see a lot of stuff leading up to the race, and then we'll have the race itself. So it's always a fun time. Always a fun time in Australia.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm looking forward to the race. It's gonna be a crazy Sunday morning or Sunday or whatever day you're watching it.
Saturday
But
night.
it's gonna be good. Let's just hope it's not, everybody falling
Right.
apart, because I would like to see more than 13 cars finish or 12 cars finish the race. But
Yes. But I don't know if there's been a race, especially in recent years, where there's not been a red flag at Australia.
no,
It is just the
Australia's-
nature of that course. And last year was way worse because we had so many, but there's always generally at least one red flag.
It is, and that's what we looked into it last year. It's the most brutal course. It's the one that's got the most number of cars that go out. So
Yes.
it's going to be.
Yes.
It's going to be. Let's just not set a record this year. Let's just do that.
Agreed.
Let's keep as many on the track and not out as possible. So
That'd be amazing.
fun.
I'm
It's going to
excited.
be fun.
Yay. All right.
We still had a lot to say, so it's another good week.
Yes.
Thanks
We
for
are
coming
ready for
along.
next week. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
See you guys next week.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and a review. To stay up to date with She Loves the Grid and get all the behind the scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at She Loves the Grid and on Facebook at facebook.com/She Loves the Grid. Thank you for joining us for the ride this week.